So 23 was correct. Now we are doing question 22. Right, perfect. So what type of unemployment might arise from a worldwide decline in the demand for electronic goods? So when there is a worldwide decline in the demand for electronic goods, what is this type of unemployment? What is this type of unemployment called? Right? It's called, read it again. Voluntary is when people voluntarily leave jobs, right? When they're voluntarily unemployed, they don't want to work for some reason, right? And they are unemployed by choice. So that is what voluntary is. That is what voluntary is, right? So in this case, what will you call that? That would be, that should be frictional, seasonal, structural. Did you get the idea what is voluntary? Voluntary is when you are voluntarily unemployed. So think about it. I've graduated from university and let's say I don't want to work for a while. I wanted to stay at home, chill a bit, right? So it's not that I'm not able to find a job. It's just because I don't want to work right now. So that is kind of voluntary unemployed. You're doing it voluntarily, right? And what is structural? Structural is when there is a change in the system. Right. Right. So structural, let me quickly tell you what each of these are. Structural unemployment at Bab is when there's a structural change. So think about this. The simplest example of that could be people used to use typewriters before, laptops and computers were invented. Now, after laptops and computer, exactly. So that technology became outdated. So in the demand for electronic goods, if for some reason people stop using electronic goods, let's say there's something else now, blah, 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 whatever, right? It's hard to imagine at the moment, but let's say there is a possibility for that. Then there will be structural shift. No one will be buying that product, right? So 22 should be C. Does it make sense? 22 is C, right? Okay, now the next question says, is it making sense? And if you want to tell me what are the other types of unemployment, frictional is when people are temporarily unemployed. So that happens when, let's say, I leave job from one organization and I'm looking for another job in some other organization. It might take me 1 week, 2 week, 1 month. That is frictional, right? Temporarily unemployed. And seasonal is very simple when there is seasonal demand for a thing. So when people who are farmers and they only grow crops in summers, let's say, then they will be seasonally unemployed. And then they will be seasonally unemployed, right? So Isha, we just did question 22 and now we are doing question 21. You can read the question 22. It's very simple and easy. But if you have any confusion, you can ask me. Okay. How may outward migration from a developing country affects its balance of payments? How may outward migration meaning people going out of Pakistan, from a developing country affects its balance of payments? It may improve its balance of payments by increasing export capacity. It may improve its balance of payments by increasing the inflow of current transfers. It may worsen the balance of payment by causing its currency to depreciate, right? Currency to depreciate, right? It may worsen the balance of payment by increasing consumer expenditure on imported goods. Right. So it should be B. What are current transfers? If you remember, current transfers are one-sided transactions. What are current transfers? Current transfers are one-sided transactions, which includes aid, right? So if a country, Pakistan, is receiving aid from another country, right, or a loan, that would be current transfer. Similarly, when we receive a remittance, that is also a current transfer because that is one way. That's not going the other way, right? So that is again one way, right? Easy. Are we getting this? Any confusion so far? So with more money coming into the country, because what happens? People who go out, they send their money back home. They send their money back home, and that would be an inflow, right? 22 is C. Yeah, 22 is C, and 22 should be 22 is C, and 22 is 21. Sorry, I had to see 21. And that's what I got confused. I was like, how the hell is that? 21 is B. Very good. Excellent. Right? Isha, did you get the other one? Right. Okay, very good. Excellent. Let's move to the next question. The table shows the percentages of employment in primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors in 4 countries. Which country is most likely to be developed country? That should be simple. Which country is most likely to be a developed country? Right. So 20 should be A, right? Does it make sense? Isha, do you also think it's A? Right? So that should be, think about this. So when a country develops, its focus, what is primary sector? Primary sector is agriculture sector, right? So its focus on agriculture sector decreases, and its focus on, when you're developing, when you're becoming developed country, you start producing more manufactured goods like India and China. Now they're producing more, right? They're producing more manufacturing. They're more focused on manufacturing. And then when you become even more developed, you start focusing on services, right? Okay, next question. The table shows the figures estimated at the end of the train riders. Right, exactly. End of a train drivers strike. What was the reduction in the recorded level of national income resulting from the strike? Right. What was the reduction in the recorded level of national income resulting from the strike? Interesting. Now that's very interesting. So did you get the question? So the question is saying, right? Uh, the question is saying that, if there is a train driver strike, and after that, what is going to be the loss of national income due to that strike? What will be the loss in national income due to that strike? So think about this. Let's take it systematically. Students, stay with me. How much was the loss in revenue from train journeys? How was the loss? How was the total loss from train journeys? $600,000. How much was the loss from train journeys? Right? Now, the loss of government tax revenue, the value placed on the extra leisure by strikers, that is not something that we record in GDP, so we don't need to worry about it. The benefit that I get due to extra holidays, that is not part of the GDP, so we do not need to take that into consideration. Students, are you following me? Then the loss of government tax revenue, right, is something, right? Okay, how about we check the answer first? Arbab is saying C. Isha, can you make a guess? Can you make a guess? And then we can check, and then, right. Acha, you said C, sorry. Arbab, you also think it's C? Okay, I think it's A. I think it's A. Right. Let's see. I'll tell you if my answer is correct. 19 is A. Right. So let me tell you why. Students, think about this. How much was the loss of train journeys? 600. So what you guys did was to add 600,000 to 40,000, right? Loss of government revenue. Just tell me one thing. Where does the government collect the revenue from? Where does the government collect the revenue from? from the business activity that is taking place, from the revenue that from us. Exactly, Arbab. So that is not a new income. That is not a new income that the government generates. It's just taking income from someone else. So tax is never part of the GDP. Do you get it? Let me explain you like this, right? So when we see that how much will be the GDP, that is where aggregate demand intersects with aggregate supply. So we do not include the tax, because tax is basically taken away from the income that we have, right? It's not a new income that the government generates. It's not new income, right? So when there is a strike in the country, there will be an overall loss of $600,000 by not having train journeys and people not spending money on that. So that was the loss. That was the loss. Now, from this money, obviously 40,000 should have gone to the government, but I mean, we are not concerned about it, right? We're not concerned about it because this is not the new money that could have generated. This is not the new income that that would have been generated. It is just taking a chunk of that. It is just taking a chunk of what the people are already earning. How many of you got this? If you got this point, only then you will understand what is coming up next. Right? Did you get this? So think about this. If there is a strike going on in Pakistan, if there is a strike going on in Pakistan and people did not go to work, right? And because of that, businesses lost 100,000 in revenue, 100,000 rupees, whatever, dollars, I don't know, in revenue, right? Now, this money is the one that out of this, let's say 10,000 government would have received in revenue, right? Now, when it says we will subtract tax from revenue. Right. So it is basically when it's talking about, because the question is asking you just about the loss of national income. So for the loss of national income, you don't have to account for this. You don't have to account for this because it is technically going from the same level of income that the people or the businesses would have generated. Government doesn't generate any money of its own. Government just take the chunk of what people earn. Arbab, I know it's kind of very tricky, but did you get this part? Right? So if I say how much loss Pakistan will face if TLP comes for a protest, which is a current situation going on in Pakistan, right? It would only be the loss of businesses, because when they don't open, they don't sell, they don't make any revenue, that is the loss of national income. As far as the loss of government revenue is concerned, that is part of what people have generated. That is part of what the businesses would have generated. Not a separate thing. Government is not doing any of their own commercial activity. They're just taking the chunk of what other businesses earn. Makes sense or not? Isha, is this clear? Yes, no? Stay confused. Right. And why did I subtract 30 from that? Why did I subtract 30 from that? Who can tell me? Overtime payments to police. So when you're employing extra police and you're paying them more income, isn't that part of the national income? Wouldn't that increase your national income? So with having extra police to monitor the protesters, you are generating extra income, because this is clearly mentioned, it's an overtime, right? So that is increase in national income because of the strike. So overall loss to businesses were 600, but 30 was recovered due to extra overtime that you're paying to police. That is also part of the national income. So the overall loss to national income due to protest was $570,000. That was $570,000, right? You did not account for this thing, last thing, and you added this to this because you thought that government is generating some revenue from its own, right? Government is not generating any money of its own. It just takes portion of what the people, it just takes the portion of what other businesses generate, right? Yeah. Right? Yeah. Do you have a question? Okay. Think about this. Overtime. Now, what is overtime? Anything in addition to what you are already earning. Anything in addition to what you are already earning, right? Now, when there will be more police assigned to protest, right? And they are spending overtime. So otherwise their duty is for 8 hours a day. Now, because there are protests going on in Islamabad or wherever, right? Police will be, let's say, made to work 10 hours per day, but those 2 hours are extra. That is not according to their contract. So government makes them pay overtime. So you're working for us, we will compensate you for the extra 2 hours that you put in daily, right? Now, with that happening, these policemen are getting some extra salary. And since income is part of GDP, right? The income that any group in Pakistan earns, that is part of Pakistan's GDP. So this is basically increasing. This thing is increasing your GDP at the moment, increasing your national income. But this thing was decreasing your national income. So you have to take the net of that, and 600 minus 30 gives you 570. Is this making sense, or is this still kind of confusing? Does it make sense? Right? Okay. Now, the next question says, a government uses personal disposable income per head as a measure of standard of living. A government uses personal disposable income per head as a measure of standard of living, as a measure of the standard of living. What does this measure not take into account? What does this measure not take into account? Changes in average price level, right? Changes in average price level, the level of direct taxation, average price level, right? The level of national income, the size of the population. A government uses personal disposable income per head as a measure of the standard of living. What does this measure not take into account? Right? Arbab, we are doing this question 18. I think you dropped out of the call. Can you hear me now? A government uses personal disposable income. Okay, very good, excellent. A government uses personal disposable income per head as a measure of standard of living. What does this measure not take into account? Changes in average price level, the level of direct taxation, the level of national income, and the size of the population. So first tell me, what does disposable income means? What is disposable income? Isha? So disposable income is gross income minus income tax. So taxation has already been taken care of that. No. Arwa? So gross income is basically, my company says they will pay me whatever, right? Let's say a person earns, right? And then the government takes 10% income tax. So the amount that is available for you to spend before your expenses, right? The amount that is available to spend, that is your disposable income. So gross income, this is what the company is transferring to your bank account. Government takes 10% of that, and income taxes, the amount that is available for you to spend, that is disposable income. So direct taxation, which is basically income tax, has already been taken care of. National income, obviously, if you are calculating per head income, you need to have national income, and then you divide it with population. Then you need to have national income, which is the total income of the country. Then you divide it with the population. That will give you per head. Do I make sense? So C and D are also taken care of. C and D are also taken care of. What is not taken care of? How do we know that average price level has not been taken account for? Because it doesn't say real. It doesn't say real. Real and nominal, there's a difference. In nominal, you do not account for inflation, even though it doesn't say nominal, but we can assume. Why can we assume nominal? Because nominal is the default, right? For it to be real, it should be mentioned. If something is not mentioned with anything, what will we assume? It's nominal. Until unless a word doesn't say that there's a real thing, then we assume that it hasn't been accounted for inflation. Above, are you following me, right? So if it doesn't say it's real, then we will always assume that it's nominal, right? That meaning that it hasn't been accounted for inflation. When it says real, it means that it has been accounted for inflation, right? So let's check. 19, right? So we said 19 is A. Okay, right? Sorry, 18. We want to check 18, my bad. 18 is A. Got it? Right? So students, this is what you need to know. Let's move to the next question. Which government policy to counter the effects of income inequality is correctly matched with the one of its advantages and the one of its disadvantages? Food stands for poor. Hmm. So what do you think? So which policy will correctly link to its advantages and disadvantages? A. Okay. Isha? Hmm. B maybe. Higher national income encourages skill training. Higher budget deficit. Disadvantage is correct, but budget deficit, I mean, government is not paying out of their own pocket, so budget would not be affected. But again, how will that encourage skill training? So Isha, think about this. So let's check the answer first, but I think it's A. 17 is A, right? And 17 is A. Think about this. So Isha, higher national minimum wage. So what does this mean? It basically means that if previously government said that every person who's working full time will be getting a wage of, let's say, 15,000 rupees per month. Now with higher minimum wage, everyone will be getting a wage of at least 20,000 rupees per month. When people already know that they are getting this basic amount, why would they want to write exactly? So that is a disincentive. That is not encouraging. That is discouraging people to get skilled. Because otherwise, if this wouldn't have existed, then people would have the urge to learn the skill, like to become a carpenter or to become an electrician or to become a plumber, because they know that if they have to earn a higher wage, they have to learn some skill that can pay them more. But now in this case, they are not much concerned, right? Okay, next question. So, which government policy has greater equality as one of its consequences? Which government policy has a greater equality as one of its consequences? A cut in income tax. A cut in income tax. Increased reliance on indirect taxes, payment of unemployment benefits, privatization of transport industries. Which of these things will create more equality, more equal distribution of income in the economy? That's what it says. That's what you need to tell. Any guesses? Confused? No idea? Right. Tax cut is for all, but think about it, Isha, whom will it benefit more? So even if you're giving tax cut to everyone, even if you're giving, right, even if you're getting a tax cut, but whom will, everyone is getting that, who will get the most benefit out of that? What do you think? Whom will it benefit the most? Who are earning more, right? So the idea, right? A cut in income tax. So this means that income tax is previously income tax was more, now income tax is less. That is what a tax in income tax means, right? So whom will it benefit more? That's my question. Don't you think it will benefit rich more who are already earning more? Am I making sense? Right? So, right. So the correct answer, Bob, what do you think is the correct answer? Unemployment benefits. You're saying C, right? I also think it's C, right? But let's check. 16, I think is C. Let's see. 16 is C, right? Easy? Right. So labor is the only variable factor of a profit maximizing firm, which is price taker in the labor market. For what is the firm, from what is the firm's demand curve for labor derived? Labor is the only variable factor of a profit maximizing firm, which is a price taker in the labor market. From what is the firm's demand curve for labor derived? It's marginal cost. Right? So that should be, Isha, do you agree? Marginal revenue product of labor. Marginal revenue product of labor, right? Marginal revenue means, if you remember, we talked about this, that how much is the additional revenue that each labor will generate. Now, if you're wondering that what's the difference between B and C, are you guys wondering what's the difference between B and C? Let me tell you. So the difference between B and C is, just a second, so the difference between B and C, B is just marginal revenue product. Marginal revenue is just the change in revenue due to change in output. That doesn't connect revenue with labor. So marginal revenue is just how much will be the increase in revenue due to change in output. That is what it requires. Whereas marginal revenue product of labor measures, so we write this down, marginal revenue product of labor, right? And you can also write L, marginal revenue product of labor, right? So that is how much will be the change in marginal revenue. How much will be the change in, sorry, not marginal revenue. How much will be the change in revenue? How much will be the change in revenue due to change in labor units? If you hire one more unit of labor, by how much will your revenue rise? That is what the marginal revenue product shows you. Right? Easy? Is this clear? Right? So let's do one more question and then stop it for today, and tomorrow we'll continue from it. The diagram shows a firm's average product of labor and marginal physical product of labor curves. What can be concluded, deduced from the diagram? This is average physical product of labor, and this is marginal physical product of labor curves. AP declines beyond OL2 as a result of diseconomies of scale. A profit maximizing would never hire more than OL2 labor hours. Right. Okay. Between OL and O2, each extra unit hired causes both MPL and unit decline. Diminishing returns first set in when the number of labor hours hired reaches OL1. Diminishing returns. Interesting. Okay, so what is the difference between average and marginal? Okay, Isha, C is not correct. I'll tell you why. Bob, you're saying A. For this question, you're saying A. Okay, so the correct answer is, I think the correct answer is D. Let's check. 14 is D, right? 14 is D, students. Okay, now what's the reason for that? Okay, let me tell you. So economies and diseconomies, let me explain you all the options, right? So economies and diseconomies, Bob, is when it is change in the average total cost. Now, the good thing and the bad thing about economics is that there are so many different terms that you have to remember and know what each one of these tell you, right? So economies and diseconomies of scale is a specific term that you use. Have a look at this. When your average total cost is decreasing, that is known as economies of scale, EOS, let's say. And when your average cost starts to go up beyond this point, that is known as diseconomies of scale. So labor has nothing to do with economies and diseconomies. Easy, easy, right? Now, what you said, Isha, right, was option C. Between O1, you said C, right? Between O1L, OL1 and OL2, each extra labor hour hired causes both MPL and APL to decline. So think about this. Now you have to be very careful over here. MPL is declining. MPL is declining between this part. Okay, think about this. This part MPL is declining, but between this part. But what about APPL, average physical product of labor? Isn't that going up, Isha? I'm not going into any technical jargon. I'm not defining any word. The statements are simply saying that between OL and OL2, OL1 and OL2, each extra labor hours hired cause both to decline. Now, this part between O1 and O2, MPPL is declining. I agree with you, 110%. But over here, APPL is going up. Isn't that going up? Isn't the trend upwards? So how can that statement be correct? How can that statement be correct? Does it make sense? Students, does it make sense? Right? Now, how is the third statement correct? Now, think about this. Now, what is diminishing return? What is diminishing return? Diminishing return is related to the physical product of labor. Diminishing returns is related to the physical product of labor, right? Now, think about this. Marginal product of labor. How much quantities is each unit of labor producing? How much quantities is each unit of labor producing, right? So when you hired the first guy, he produced, let's say, 5 units of output on his own. When you hired the sixth guy, sorry about this, it's not a very neat diagram. When you hired the second unit of labor, that guy produced, let's say, 7 units on his own. When you hired the third guy, this is marginal product of labor. What was marginal product of labor? Marginal product of labor is basically change in output due to change in labor. So how much will be the rise in output due to hiring of 1 more unit of labor? That is what marginal product of labor is. Students, are you following me? When you hired the third guy, he on his own, let's say, produced 9 units. When you hired the fourth guy, what happened? Did something happen? Yes. And that is that the fourth guy produced less than the third guy, right? And then the fifth guy produced lower. So this was the highest. So this third guy was producing the highest quantity. From 1 to 3, what was happening? Each additional unit was producing more. Each additional unit of labor was producing more. This is called increasing returns. When each additional unit of labor produces more than the previous unit, you guys saw it for yourself. First guy was producing 5 units. The second guy on his own was producing 7 units, right? 7 units over here. The third guy on his own was producing 8 units, but on the fourth unit, the output dropped down to 8 units. So up till this part, what was happening? It is increasing. When the marginal product of labor is going upwards, that is increasing returns. And when the marginal product of labor starts to decrease, that is decreasing returns. Any confusion? Anything that's not clear? Anything you want to ask me? Right? So students, the best thing about the best way to get more command over the MCQs is to practice more, and right, that's the thing, right? So tomorrow is Friday, so tomorrow we will not have a class. We can have a class. When is the next class? I'll try to make up, because otherwise, and that's a good question. Let me quickly tell you. I said that we will have classes on both Saturday and Sunday, but I was thinking if we can have one class tomorrow, right? Because otherwise Friday is not for paper 3, that is for paper 1. So we can have one less class on Sunday, right? Then we will only have on Saturday. So for tomorrow, just tell me this time. If I take your class between this, would that sound good to you? 6:15 to 7. Tomorrow, I'm talking about tomorrow, right? Then we'll not have a class on Sunday. We will only have a class on Saturday. right? When is your exam? Then will you be able to take the class over the weekend? 16 or 18? Tuesday. When is Tuesday? Right. So then I'm assuming coming Tuesday, right? So you will not be even able to, you will not be able to take the weekend class, or will you be able to take the weekend class? Isha? If you're not able to take the weekend class either, then we'll continue, right, with our class. And right, so then you can watch the recording. Okay, fine. Thank you for telling me in advance. You can watch the recording. Right? Does this sound good? Right, it will upload it on YouTube. Yeah. Okay, so then I'll see you tomorrow, Arbab, from 6:15 to 7, right? Right? Take care and have a good night. Allah Hafiz.